Welcome to the Sustainable Business Council meeting and our first annual Sustainability Awards. This has to have been one of the hardest tasks the board of directors has had to do so far, is choosing between these companies, because when we got their questionnaires and their forms back, it was amazing what some of these companies are doing, companies and not-for-profit organizations. It was really an exciting process to go through, difficult for a variety of reasons. And we'll start with the Sustainable Business of the Year. This was such a hard category, we decided to give 2 awards. Not just 1, but 2. We divided the category in half by business organizations and nonprofit organizations. So we ended up with 2 awards in that particular category. And I'll go down the list real quickly and let you know all of who was nominated, and then I'll tell you who the lucky award winners were. The Ecology Project International, and we have Julie Osborne here tonight representing them. They do educational projects with sea turtle restoration in Central and South America. When they talked about how their own office runs, it was amazing all the things that the staff there is doing in the way of recycling and energy efficiency, and they're part of Missoula in Motion, so they are doing biking to work and all of those things. So they do a great job there. Second, we have Home Resource. By the way, Ecology Project International and Home Resource are both nonprofits in this group. Home Resource is a recycled building materials center. In addition to taking recycling for building materials, they're now also taking some glass and some porcelain to be crushed and done in road base. They are also doing some work with Opportunity Resources, which deals with providing jobs for folks with disabilities. And so they're teaching disabled folks how to do restoration work. They're working on a project to develop some shingles, and they actually ended up down in the new venture category and suggested that they told us they weren't quite far enough to be considered down here because the project isn't quite up and running. I heard about it and was excited, and so somebody nominated, we talked about it and they were nominated, but they actually told us, well, we're not quite ready to have you look at that project yet. So we didn't look at that project, but it's really exciting because what they hope to have is Opportunity Resources individuals, so handicapped individuals, working to create a siding shingle out of scraps of board, 2x4, 1x4, all of that. And so if they get that process off the ground, that'll be really cool. But this year they're just up here for the most part. Meadow Sweet Herbs, they manufacture and sell herbal products here in Missoula. One of the neat things about them is they do a lot of work with small businesses, in other words, small either growers or harvesters. And so they support a fair amount of folks in our economy here locally. They also have policies with regards to rare plants. They only purchase those from growers rather than things out in the wild where people would be picking them into extinction, those kinds of things. And a fair amount of their product is also organic. Solar Plexus, they have sales and installation of solar and wind. They also ended up down in our new venture of the year because they've just recently added solar hot water heaters to their line within the last 2 years. So they're down here as well. Sustainable Systems, they sell biodiesel fuel here in the area, and they've been doing a fair amount of research and development with regards to fuel additives and lubricants as well. So they hope to have a whole line of products out. They're the ones who fuel the bio buses over on campus. Part of their product is made with fryer grease from the campus that goes back. And the final group here, or final business here, is Tipu's. They're an East Indian restaurant that serves all vegetarian, a fair amount of organic food. Again, they recycle everything that they can. Some of their fryer grease ends up in the bio bus even. And so all of these entities are doing so many things that it was very, very difficult to choose who would be our particular winners this year. And I guess where I'll start then in this category is with our Sustainable Business of the Year. And we decided to go with Meadow Sweet Herbs this year. Oh, I'm just going to do a really cool thing here. I have these cute little guys to go up on the thing. They are our regular Sustainable Business this year. Well, I don't know if that'll go my way. And unfortunately, they they would have a representative here, and she's not here. So I don't know where their award winner is. They sent several emails. They have a baby. They sent several emails saying there would be a representative here, and she didn't appear. So anyway, there's that one. And then the other one in this category, of course, and I can't find it right now, is our Sustainable Nonprofit of the Year. And again, these are really tough choices when we were doing these. Oh, so these, my things are too big. This year we decided to award it to Home Resource. And Lauren, that means you have to come up here. For their work in the combination of both environment and the social issues in pulling in the folks at Opportunity Resources. And they get this great plaque here, right? And also a $10 gift certificate to TreeCycle. So, and everybody can use office products, right? TreeCycle does office products. Thank you. Keep up the good work there, Lauren. Lauren is partner Matt. And I am gonna, because everybody did such a great job, I'm gonna have Julie come up. She's the other person I have in this category that got a representative here. I asked everybody to have representatives.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a nominee. You did a great job. All right. The second category then that we asked for was Sustainable New Venture of the Year. We were looking for folks initially that had started within the last year. And as we started asking for nominations, one of our criteria was whether or not they'd shown that they were successful and whether they had shown that they were sustainable, could be in business. And the category was real hard to fill if you said they had to be within a year. We let that stretch just a little bit out to about a year and a half when we added a couple of these folks to the list. Again, Home Resource, their lumber recycling project was nominated, and they asked us to not do that yet because they're not up and running. So we didn't consider that one. The next one was the glass recycling that Tom Ernst at Missoula Valley Recycling started initially with Ozzy's Oil. Ozzy's Oil has been sold and it's now with Montana Rockworks. They're collecting glass and crushing it into a landscaping product that can either be used just like in flower beds because it's fairly smooth. Oh, and we have some. Is this one? Or in cement, and I haven't seen it, but I've heard there's a driveway in town that's gorgeous because it's got this rock in the cement so it sparkles and stuff. Anyway, so that's how that ends up. Solar Plexus, their new solar hot water heaters, they haven't done very many installations yet, but the ones that they've done are very interesting. They did one relatively large industrial project where they needed to do a couple rather than just one single, in a house you basically have one hot water heater you're working with, but this is a linked system of hot water heaters, and it's escaped me as to what it was for. I'm sorry, I think it had something to do with a washing system for like agricultural products like wool or something, but again, it escapes me what that's for. I apologize for that. And then our last category here, Fireplace Pizza, you're at a year and a month or two, something like that. So they're just outside our initial 1-year criteria. They do organic pizza that we've all gotten to try here, and it's wonderful stuff. And they do a lot of recycling. Some of the brown napkins that you have over there, the recycled paper napkins, they use that as much as they can in their production process or in their store. And so that was our list of folks, and I'm going to go ahead and award that. And again, along with this one, we have a gift certificate to TreeCycle. Oh, and I have this cool system here, and I keep forgetting to do it. It's like, okay, we'll get it right. Pardon? I need Vanna, that's right. I'm trying to be Vanna and everything at once. That Chuck's my Vanna, okay? This year, we're giving Fireplace Pizza the Sustainable New Venture of the Year. Thank you, Julie. Good job. Oh, and do you want your gift certificate?
Yeah.
$10 at TreeCycle, that's a good deal. And then the other folk that we have here in the audience is Tom, if you'll come up, I'll give you your nominee award. we really we appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
We want you to keep going.
All right.
And we couldn't give everybody awards, so. Okay, the last category was probably the hardest category for us because there were lots and lots and lots of good candidates. Sustainability Advocate of the Year. One of the candidates we discussed was Bob Giordano. He's with the Missoula Institute of Sustainable Transportation, and he's been promoting roundabouts in town. He runs Free Cycles, which is a place where people can go to build bicycles so that they have transportation, and the Festival of Cycles, which is also an event like that. Right after we made the decision for this category, we actually, like the day after, was the article that said they're actually going to do a roundabout on Higgins, or at least City Council could change their mind again, of course, but they are planning to work on a roundabout on Higgins, and a lot of that had to do with Bob's work, getting them convinced that maybe that would be a good thing to do. The second person is Betsy Hands of Homeward. She helps Homeward do sustainable building projects. And one of the things when we got her nomination back that was very interesting that I didn't realize is she started to, Homeward has been getting some requests, and Betsy is going as their representative, to explain how Homeward works to people around the country. So the model that Homeward's creating, providing low-income housing with things like solar power on the roof, is hopefully going to spread based on Betsy's work. Mark Leparco from the UMM Dining Services, he was responsible 2 or 3 years ago for getting the Farm to College program set up, which is where the University of Montana tries very hard to get as much as they can from local growers. About 10% of the food that goes into the University Dining Services now comes from local folks. And that's like $375,000 that goes into our local economy thanks to him. He also, several years ago, set up the Earth Tubs, which they're trying recycling some of the dining waste over, or composting, right behind the facilities over at the UMM Dining Services. Having some troubles with that, but they actually purchased some new equipment this year that may help them do that, to strain a little of the water out of some of their compostables, so hopefully that'll help. This year, he was actively involved in trying to get a law passed in the legislature that said the state had to buy a certain percentage of their goods from local entities, so all state agencies would have to do that. Unfortunately, the bill failed, but when the bill came, he went over and testified for it. It brought it to the attention of the dining services at MSU, and MSU is now going to start a Farm to College program, thanks to his efforts there. Again, the bill failed, but we at least got some other folks doing stuff. Steve Loken promotes sustainable building practices here in town, and he has a business, in fact, doing that. He's been active this year in getting our committee for the built environment started, and so and has some suggestions for projects they're working on, and that's how he ended up on the list. And the final person on the list is Rebecca Richter from the Missoula Urban Demonstration Project. And she has been promoting sustainable practices among citizens here in the Missoula area, including making trips to each and every one of the neighborhood councils to talk about sustainability issues and try and get all the neighborhoods in our town committed to that. And she's also starting an organization, or restarting maybe, an organization to connect all of the sustainable nonprofits in the area. So we're all working on a variety of things, and we often have meetings that overlap, which is why Rebecca isn't going to stay after we give these awards, is because she and I actually set up meetings that overlap, and we're here, she's trying to get this organization that will hopefully allow us to schedule things better, share some resources together, which we're not necessarily doing very well at this point in time. Like I said, this was a real struggle up until the very last minute with this particular award, because everybody on the board had different opinions about what should happen here. We came down to Rebecca Richter because really she's putting a lot of stuff together right here in Missoula. And I think sustainability initiatives in Missoula are going to go a long way thanks to Rebecca.
Thank you, Sue.
You get to choose yellow or blue. Blue. The Patagonia outlet in Dillon donated some nice gifts for us to give. Pardon? They will change size if it's extra large. So if you need lots of room, there it is. You're welcome. And we actually have a sneak last award because he doesn't know anything about it. He's a board member, and so the board had to kind of do it on the sly, not during board meetings. Oh, and I didn't put Rebecca's thing up, but we decided that we needed, sorry, I don't keep things mentally in order. We decided we needed to give us an SBC Volunteer of the Year award. And our SBC Volunteer of the Year this year is Chuck Irestone. And of all those members that I mentioned a little while ago, there's like 8 new members on the list this month. All of them, directly or indirectly, are due to Chuck. About 7 of them are actually people he's talked to. The 8th is somebody who saw our website, which is what he creates and does for us and maintains for us. We couldn't do it without Chuck. He's really providing a fair amount of the member benefits through the website that we're providing at this point in time. We really wanted to acknowledge what Chuck's doing. And you get the yellow one. All right. With that, I think we're going to go ahead and cut away to Tom Ernst of Missoula Valley Recycling, who's going to tell us about the state-of-the-art of recycling in Missoula. And he's going to hopefully talk a little bit about recycling in schools, because most of our schools here don't do very much. So after we talk about what we can do as businesses, then we'll talk about maybe how we can take our schools, a good place to teach kids about recycling, and get them a step further along. Tom's been involved in a variety of different environmental things, and I believe you kind of have a background as an environmental educator. Is that right? I'm trying to remember the bio that I read like a month ago. Anyway, we're going to let Tom come talk about how we can do more recycling here for ourselves and how we educate people about recycling. And I get to give you this guy. You can either...
I'd kind of rather use this, I think. Can I just put this on here?
They don't hear it. They don't hear that one. That's just for the...
That's for what?
For the video.
Okay. Hi there. Welcome up there in the balcony. My name's Tom Ernst, and I've had Missoula Valley Recycling since the year 2000. I bought it from a guy who lived in Boise, Idaho, and it had 2 employees, Chris Zohar and Andy Martinez. Chris was the office person. Andy was the pickup guy. And they had never met their boss. And they worked there for 3 years. Their boss had started a computer company. Actually, their boss had started Missoula Valley Recycling in the Rattlesnake. It was a volunteer organization. And it sort of grew out of that in 1990. And so then they started it as a business. He moved to Boise. A couple people got on board and did a little marketing, and it just slowly grew and grew and grew. Well, I happened to meet Chris because she was my neighbor on Turner Street on the north side, and she was ready to quit. So was Andy. And I said, wow, I wonder if the guy wants to sell the business. And she said, yeah, I'm sure he does. So I made him a ridiculously cheap offer, and we negotiated for a while, and I took it over. At the time I took it over, it wasn't making any money for the owner. And just at that, and I decided, well, I'm going to raise our residential rates from $7 per pickup to $9 per pickup. And I'm going to raise Chris and Andy's pay from $7 per hour to $9 per hour. And at the same time, Missoula made a deal with BFI to take glass. We had been the only glass recycler in Missoula. We were shipping it to Denver, Colorado to be recycled at the Coors recycling plant there. Coors has been in bottles forever. In fact, that's how they got through Prohibition. That's why they can say they're 100 years old. Actually, they make the ceramic tiles for the space shuttle, too. So the city starts this program to take glass. Well, a lot of our customers dropped us because now they could take their glass for free. And I lost 50 customers right off the bat. And then... Did you say the city starts the program? the city started the program with BFI. The city said, we're going to save the day here. We're going to create a glass recycling program, and we'll collect the glass. When we award our road contract, JTL will grind the glass and use 10% of it in their road base for all road contracts in the city of Missoula. Missoula is a pretty small town, and the glass that started coming in for this program was coming in from all over western Montana. And so pretty soon at the city lot over there by BFI, they had a mountain of glass. So they said, we got to quit the program at the city council meeting. And I had caught wind that they were going to do this. So I went to the city council meeting and I said, you can't quit the program. I got to back up a little bit because they let us throw our glass in with the city program. They had been charging us 5 cents a pound to ship it to Denver. And so now we were getting to throw it in for free. Well, we were paying them $500 a month for the glass shipment against what we were making on our recyclables. So now, instead of paying them $500, we were getting a check for about $800 to $1,000 for our recyclables. So that's what made MVR solvent when I took it over. It was all about glass. Well, that program lasted 2 years, and then they decided to cut the glass program, so I had to call every single customer on the phone and say, we can't take your glass this week. Please don't put it out, because we have nowhere to put it. We have nowhere to take it. And that's where it stood for about a year until I started talking with Ozzy over at Ozzy's Oil. He had the oil recycling place at the end of Phillips. And he says, I got this glass crusher. Ozzy's a real wheeler dealer, and you know, he likes to get his fingers in a lot of different businesses. And so he says, I got this glass crusher, and he showed me the glass crusher, and he showed me the glass product. And I said, gosh, why don't we just start taking glass? I'll charge my customers 5 cents a pound to take the glass. And if somebody wants to recycle glass, they can pay for the processing fee, and I'll pay you 2.5 cents a pound to grind the glass, and then you can market it as you see fit. So he says, okay, and then about 8 months later, he finally got his grinder together, and we started grinding glass, and that's how we started that glass program. When I went on vacation this winter, I got back, and Ozzy had sold the oil company, and I was now dealing with Rockworks, which is out by the Y. So now we were driving our glass way out there. I talked to Ozzy just this morning. I said, you know, what are we doing with the glass? Where's it going? I want to be able to tell the people at the Sustainable Business Council what we're doing with it. Well, we got lots of things we're going to do with it. So I hope so. I hope we don't get a mountain of glass. But I think there's a lot of interest in the community from builders that want to use the product. So I think a lot of times when you get a product, you've got a commodity, people will find ways to use it. And that's one thing I want to talk about in my state of the recycling talk right now, is that recycling in the U.S. really isn't that old. It really started about in the 60s. And it wasn't necessarily with the hippies and the environmental movement as much as it was the beautification project that Lady Bird Johnson started, because people used to just throw their trash out the window. And I don't know how many of you remember the old ad where the Indian rides up on the horse and he's looking over the city and a tear comes down his eye because he sees all the trash. So that really appealed to the American affinity for Native Americans in this country and what we're doing, and I think it really helped launch recycling as well and the whole environmental movement. Well, in the 1970s, the recycling rate in the United States was about 15%, which isn't that great. But by the year 2000, the recycling rates had reached 50%. And the reason they got so high is because as people started recycling and as these commodities got developed, it created products that now there is a demand for these products. And so the products like aluminum, paper, all have brand new things that are being made out of them. A good example is plastic, PET. There's a high demand for PET right now because people make strapping out of it. They're making carpeting out of it. They make these out of it, you know, thanks to Patagonia. And China wants it. Everybody wants it, but they can't get enough of it. Why? Because people don't recycle enough of it. But I think that's a good example of how recycling is really here to stay. And rather than look at recycling as, you know, plastic and things that we should put back, it's a commodity and it's a big business. I left some periodicals over there, and you can see how many states are passing legislation, how many businesses are moving towards doing the PC thing, and recycling is part of the American lexicon now, and it's going to stay. We're a recycling nation, and that's good to see. Let's give that a hand. Companies like Coca-Cola that decide, okay, we're going to use 10% PET in our bottles, creates a demand. Starbucks was one of the early leaders too in using paper products in their cups. What did I just read? Oh, GE, did anybody hear about them this week? They came out and said, we're environmentalists now. And I heard a commercial for ExxonMobil. They're saying, we are the foremost company for research and development of alternative technologies. And I believe that they probably will be because they're ExxonMobil and they have a lot of power and they see the writing on the wall. And I think that's a good thing. So, you know, maybe it seems like they're insincere about what they're doing. They really just want to make profits. But if that's the way it is, then so be it, right? Because it's still helping the greater whole of moving towards an environmental consciousness. Let's talk about Montana. Montana has 2 or 3 laws. California passed 70 while Gray Davis was in office. Montana has a law to help people that buy recycled goods. Like if you buy recycled glass for a driveway, you get to write off 10% of that recycled glass off your driveway. I think one of the problems with Missoula is that Montana is that, you know, we've got these great distances to take recyclables to market. But I think that's kind of a misconception because if you think about it, people in Montana, they always go to some place like Great Falls or Billings or Missoula. And if they wanted to recycle, if you lived up in Hot Springs and you wanted to recycle, well, next time you're going to go to Walmart in Missoula, you could bring your recyclables because that's what a lot of people in Missoula do. They load their recyclables in their cars, and when they're out running errands, they drop them off. So the real problem is awareness. Why aren't we aware? Is it because we're a red state, not a blue state, where all the recycling's really happening? I don't know. You know, it does seem to be like this anti-environmental theories of, you know, why you shouldn't do things, you know, to help the environment. I don't understand those things, of course, and neither do you. Back to Montana, they also have another credit where you can get 10% off your gross income for using or for buying property that you will use for a recycling effort. So you might be eligible for that, or anybody that buys property. Even if I buy a truck for recycling, I can get a 10% deduction, and that's better than a swift kick in the pants, too. A bottle bill in Montana failed, and that is a great way to get, like, say, plastic back into the recycling stream. Brian Spangler at the DEQ has he's a businessman, and he's the head of the DEQ now, and he's led the charge on getting this glass pulverizer that he's going to mount on a trailer and use a biodiesel generator to go around the state and pulverize glass into sand. I don't know if it'll work or not. We had a meeting here in Missoula with some council people, with Bruce Bender, the city engineer, somebody from BFI, myself. Everybody was against it. And, you know, kind of part of the problem is like glass is not a very safe thing. And where are you going to drop off tons and tons of glass? Is somebody going to put it inside a fence? Is somebody going to watch it? You know, are you going to pay somebody 8 hours a day to wait while all people bring in glass? And who's going to manage that? Who's going to pay for it? BFI doesn't want to do it because that last glass project they did with the city ended up costing them about $50,000. It's good, you know, it was good that we had a place to put our glass, but when that program ended, I hate to tell you this, but all that mountain of glass ended up in the landfill. So all that work that those people did to start that program ended up in the landfill. So I didn't want to really see it because we got this little private enterprise going where we're trying to use glass and get something going that people will buy and it'll pay for itself. That makes it more sustainable in our eyes than the government sometimes coming in to save the day. So that was kind of what's going on there. Missoula is above the state norm of recycling, which is 15%. But the awareness here is still low too. Recycling doesn't get much media attention. I've had MVR for 4 years, and there's been 2 articles in The Independent about recycling, and there's been 2 articles in the Missoulian about recycling, and so people don't think about recycling here. The City Council has appointed a Greenhouse Gas Commission. That's a good thing. And they will probably focus on public transportation, and they will focus on, you know, let's try to get recycling going, because recycling saves a lot of energy, which saves a lot of CO2. And I hope they will focus on curbside recycling, because of course, as we all know, that's the most environmental way to recycle. If our 50 customers in the Rattlesnake all drove their recycling to the recycling center, it would certainly waste a lot more gas than having MVR come up in one truck and pick up 50 people. So the logic of curbside recycling is why many cities that own their landfill are curbside recycling, because it's the most practical and environmental way to do it, least energy. There's 3 ways to recycle in Missoula. We've got a blue bag system. How many of you know about that? Okay. They get about 11,000 blue bags a week. And every Tuesday at BFI, they hire temporary labor, and they go through all these blue bags on a line, and they separate everything out, and then they you know, can process it and everything like that. There's about 20% waste involved with that. They have to pay labor, or 20% waste doesn't include the blue bags, by the way. The blue bags get trashed and landfilled. And then all the other stuff that people put in that shouldn't have put in there is wasted. And then VFI doesn't make any money doing it either. But they do it because it's good PR. And they feel like since they have a monopoly on the trash system here in Missoula, that they ought to do something. Yeah.
Do you have any estimate to how many of those blue bags don't actually, my understanding is when the truck is full, that their compartment for recyclables is full, then the blue bag goes with the rest of the garbage.
I would have to, you know, I was going to try to track down some garbage men, you know, and say, hey, how many out of 10 put blue bags out, you know, because I'm trying to get an idea. But Max Brower over at BFI said that he thinks about 4% of the Missoula, of the households recycle with blue bags in Missoula. But I didn't have the guts to say, yeah, well, what about when those guys throw it in the trash? Of course, he's not going to tell me that they do. And I have never seen him do that. And I understand that there's actually a separate compartment. So maybe if that compartment gets filled, it gets trashed. But I can't say either way. But I think it's still, at least it's another opportunity for Missoulians to recycle, you know. And I still think it's better than what 20% of the Missoulians are doing, which is driving it to the recycling center. If you live in the upper Rattlesnake and you use a gallon of gas to go recycle some plastic and some bottles and maybe some paper bags and some newspapers, I think that gallon of gas is environmentally more damaging than what you're saving by recycling. So, you know, why drive the stuff around? You know, pour the gas on the ground and set it on fire, and then go recycle. Of course, people are taking it on the way to run other errands. Yeah, hopefully, sometimes, most of the time, probably. Well, at least I try to. And I'm guilty too. I just went there the other day. I had a whole truckload of stuff from home, and instead of having Andy come over and pick it up on his route, you know, I had to go get some more blue bins anyway, so I had to go there. So I thought, oh, I might as well throw my stuff in, you know, so I'm just as guilty, you know. I was at the city office building, or city chambers the other day to pay my business license, and I've run into Mike Cadis a few times, you know, talked to him about a number of issues, you know, and so we recognize each other. I said, hey, and I just happened to be walking right down the hall next to him. I said, hi, Mike, and he goes, hi, Steve. We're like that. And I had a few questions I wanted to ask, like, how many residences are there in Missoula? And he said, well, there's about 35,000. I said, wow, you know, in the Sunday paper, just last week, they were talking about you guys are going to be voting on one subdivision over here that has 540 houses, and another one over here on Mullen Road that's got like 560 houses. That's 1,100 houses. That's 3% of Missoula. You know, in one meeting, you're going to decide that maybe 3% growth. And he said, yeah, we've had a big spike in houses. He said there's about 1,500 housing permits going in a year now. It used to be around 600 to 800. And he thinks it's spiking right now, and it'll probably level off at about 1,000. So that's what we have to expect. I think he's probably right. I remember when he was mayor a long time ago, and he showed, it was a city council meeting, and he showed a map of Missoula and said, this is where Missoula's got to grow. And he pointed to Mullen Road area, and that's exactly where Missoula's growth is going to go. I asked him something about what kind of zoning do they have for recycling? They don't have any laws about recycling. So after I paid my business license, I went down to the city grants and planning office. I said, do you guys have any kind of zoning laws about recycling? The guys, I forget his name and I forgot his card. I would like to use his name. He was a really nice guy. He says, I've been here 8 years. I know this book backwards and forwards. It's archaic. It hasn't been rewritten since 1978. And the only thing about garbage in here is that when you put a dumpster in, it has to have an enclosure around it, right? And nobody was really looking at my table over here, but I got this one receipt from APS Healthcare that tells us how much they send us every year. You know, it's like one of these, well, it's a 1099 form. We're all familiar with that. $963. They were one of our biggest customers, and they have like 70, 80 employees, but they moved into a new building, and they couldn't recycle with us because they don't have any space. I went there and looked around their building. Where can we put our dumpsters, you know? There's no place. There's just a parking lot, and there's a dumpster, and on this far around the dumpster, there's an enclosure, so they cannot recycle. And it got me thinking. It got me driving around a little bit to look. And I went over to Copper Run, that new apartment complex, and I talked to the manager there about, like, what if some of your customers would like to recycle? Would you let us pull our truck in here? We don't want to no, we don't want to get into that. You know? Oh, well, you know, I would think out of like 600 people that live here, you know, there might be 15% of them, you know, that want to recycle. I guess they'll just have to collect it themselves and take it, you know, and that's what we're facing. So I think what we need in this town is I asked the zoning guy about, well, how do we get that changed? And he said, well, a council person can make a suggestion for a zoning change. I mean, if you look at this garbage right here, I mean, that garbage in this picture right here that I just took the other day after the farmer's market, you know, there's recyclables in there. And if you took the recyclables out, they would take up just as much space as the recyclables in the garbage do now, probably less space. So what we really need to think about is, and I think being a sustainable business council, we have a little bit of power because we got a lot of businesses. And do we want Missoula in 15 years to be a place that businesses can't recycle because they don't have the space? And we can pass a zoning law that will do that. And we can find and I've already found her, a council person that would go to bat and try to do that. So I think if we can support her, and we can, I'm going to try to use my clout by my customer base with a newsletter and say, hey, why not call your council person, and let's just see if we can get this as something we can get in Missoula. So that's one thing I plan to do for the future. My next big idea is I'm an educator. I came to Montana in '78 to teach school on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, and my kids couldn't really read that good. I taught 6th grade, and so I ended up like rewriting a lot of the materials, you know, making these learning packets. And then I would put kids into like cooperative learning groups before they were called cooperative learning groups, so that they could help each other. And later on in my life, I was teaching outdoor education at LA County Outdoor School. And these kids would come up to our school and spend a week and learn about like how nature works. You know, they learn about cycles in nature. We take them on a night hike, show them where the North Star is. They didn't know where bread came from, you know. They'd never heard the word organic. So these kids come up to these outdoor schools in California, like 250,000 of them, and they learn about a lot of the problems. And I felt like, you know, we're telling these kids, you know, what's wrong, but we're not giving them the tools that they need to help solve the problems. When they leave on the bus, we're going, goodbye, go change the world, see ya. You know, and we're not using organic food at the outdoor school. We're not using biodegradable soaps. We're not doing any of those things. So, and I started thinking, you know, what's the unspoken message here? You know, we're telling them to go save the world, and we're not doing anything, and we're not giving them the tools to do it. So I led this workshop on extending the outdoor school experience and what we might do to cement some of these concepts. And my idea was to, if they could, I used the same format like with learning groups. I had like artists and scientists and mathematicians, and they would do a project. And I did it on global warming. This was in 1991. Global warming, water, and rainforest. And it took me 3 years to write these curriculums. And it just about broke my heart because I'm out there thinking like, you know, why am I writing a curriculum about global warming? I'm just one peon in California. We should have the best educators. You know, we should be, you know, attacking this problem if we're really going to do something about it. And here it is 15 years later, and there isn't as much argument about whether global warming is real or not. It's pretty much accepted that, you know, we've got a problem, and you even see a lot of the, pardon? Well, except for the government of the United States. But, you know, it's interesting that the corporations are jumping on board. And you know why? Because they want to do business in Europe. And they want to do business in Canada. So they're changing their tune so that they can... it gets me that Ford isn't, like, moving towards building a hybrid car. And GM stock is just plummeting, but they don't get it yet. You know? But anyway, so now that I've got this recycling business... I feel the same kind of thing happening. I'm seeing kids that are going to our schools here in Missoula, and you know they're told to recycle at school, but our schools are not recycling unless they're doing it in-house. I have 5 schools on our customer base that are recycling. They recycle once a month. 3 of those schools got started by a teacher, or 3 of those schools' programs in recycling got started by a teacher named Julia Horner. And she is a special ed teacher, and she uses special ed funds to fund her classroom recycling program. She's got kids that do like 6 different tasks, right? And they earn some money so that they can like buy something at a store of some kind. And recycling is one of the biggest things they do. They go around and collect the stuff, and then they separate it, and then they put it in the bins. And they can only afford to have us pick them up once a month. And whenever we pick their 4 bins up, they're always loaded with paper to where we can hardly move them. And when our bins get that heavy, it's actually kind of dangerous because the wheels can break, and our guys it's harder to move them. And I called her up to talk to her and say, could you guys afford twice a month? And she was like, no way. She goes, I take stuff in my car as it is. And I thought, well, how can we fund schools for recycling? I mean, it costs less than $500 a year to fund a school for recycling. So I'm going to try to use our customer base there and see if I can get sponsors to help sponsor school recycling in Missoula, and that would be great. I'm thinking like Rock and Rudy's, you know? They live right next to Hellgate High School. Do they get more PR out of an ad this big in the Independent, or by sponsoring Hellgate High School's recycling? I would think it would be a PR no-brainer for a lot of the companies in Missoula. And we put that out in our newsletter, and I actually had a couple customers call already and say they'd like to sponsor a school. So I'm hoping that we can get the money to set up our existing schools and get them to where they're being picked up twice a month, and then this is where I come in. I would like to try to, go into those schools, see their model, and see if I can, move forward on helping them set up a program. And then I'll have to try to keep the funding going. As some of you know, with nonprofits, you start the funding, but then what's going to keep it going, and what are you going to do for next year? So we got to try to get sponsors that will try to commit to it every year. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
We tried taking this concept just to the school boards. There's a better general awareness throughout the district of your program and what you're already doing in the schools that you have on board and so forth.
I kind of did a couple years ago. I tried to get, I was thinking, hey, I should get Washington Corp, BFI, and Pacific to sponsor school recycling, and they would get to put their name on the bin and everything, and maybe, they would see it as a really positive PR move. And I called the superintendent of schools, who just seemed kind of lukewarm about it. But he said, and we talked about it a little bit, but then I started getting negative responses from the companies, and I kind of let it drop. So now and really on a school by school basis, it varies so much, because I'm thinking I'd like to get the Catholic schools, the private schools, the alternative schools, and I think that's going to take a lot of sort of different approaches to different schools. Oh, let's see. I knew somebody might ask me. I don't know. Meadow Hill's one where Julia works, though. And we have like 3 of the junior highs. We have Willard, the alternative school, and Paxton. No. Now, I'm not saying these schools don't recycle necessarily. I'm just saying we don't pick them up. And I counted 30 schools in the phone book that we could serve. And so if we have 5, and I think some schools probably do some in-house recycling.
I'm really curious about the whole ethic of recycling.
That's a good point.
How it works for you. It seems to me, from conversations over the years, that a huge number of people want to recycle. They like to recycle. They separate dirt and go, and your paper there, glass there, and so on. And it also seems to me that a fair share of those people don't place a high enough value on it to pay to have that done.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of getting things out of the waste stream and into a reused stream
Mm-hmm.
is still a priority value.
Yeah.
And
People tell me they feel guilty all the time. They throw a can away and they...
yeah, whatever it is, the question for you is, recognizing you need to make enough money to stay in business. And if you've got costs associated with disposing what you pick up in places, in addition to your need to make enough profit to pay your bills. Where's the meeting point between all the folks who would probably gladly recycle if it was free? They'd be thrilled that they'll take it someplace, they're glad to do that, on the one hand, and the idea that maybe one step up the values ladder is that same thing, but you're gonna pay for it.
Right.
How do you work with
Well,
that? so
there's-
that
there's-
ultimately it becomes a social change?
Well, I don't know. I think it's through education and trying to increase awareness. Part of what we're doing is saying, look, we are a convenience. We are a service, because instead of throwing all that stuff in your car and driving to the recycling center and unloading it, you know, we do it for you, and we do it in a more environmental way because you're using reusable bins and you're, you know, using curbside. There's a lot of people that say, oh, I just moved here from Portland and we got recycling over there at curbside, but they're paying for it. You know, they're paying for it in their tax base. Kansas City just started a curbside recycling program, and it's costing a little less than $5 per pickup, they figure.
Third try.
And Kansas City?
I lived there.
And they don't pick up glass.
They would initiate the program and it would fail.
Yeah.
The third go around.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, like we charge now 10. It used to be 9, but now it's 10 because we started doing glass and we took 20 pounds. So I'm thinking, you know, when we pick up somebody here and somebody over there and somebody over there, and a curbside program in a city, they're going bing, 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 just like BFI does here. So $5 seems kind of expensive. So that's, I mean, but that gives me an idea of what it really costs. Then it comes down to the ignorance or the knowledge of all the people in the community and what they think about it, you know?
Well, the reason I'm asking that is from the standpoint of a waste stream, and prior to that, then at the front end, is the standpoint of using natural resources and gobbling them up.
Yeah.
If we had no cost associated with recycling,
Yeah.
what would be the share of recycling that happens? Would it be 2 or 3 or 7 or 11 times greater than it is today?
It depends on the system that gets implemented. I mean, let's say you did something like this. You throw out your trash and they weigh it and they charge you per weight. But your recyclables in this bag over here is free. Now it becomes a pocketbook issue. Even though that trash they weigh might only cost $3, you know, people will just put it in this bag because it's free. So now they'll, you know, so it depends on the system that you have. I don't know why Kansas City's system failed necessarily, but it probably wasn't a pocketbook issue for them. So that
Well, it was a pocket
it was?
issue because people did not want to have to pay.
Oh, so they had to pay?
To increase a bond issue or what have you.
Right.
Like, okay, we're gonna do citywide recycling, but we're gonna have a bond issue associated with it, where your taxes, or you have to spend a little money for us to initiate this program. And of course, people, you know, well, Kansas City in its own, it's just like there's all these debacles, especially like the school system where it failed and failed and failed.
So people don't have trust.
Faith in people
Yeah.
that the program will work within itself rather than, okay, this is a great idea, but will it function and how long will it function?
I don't know how many times I heard that about glass when we started this glass thing. I wonder how long this will last. And now I'm wondering the same thing.
They want to, but it's like they don't have faith in the systems that initiate.
So they don't want to vote for that to,
Everything else has failed, why is this going to work?
I see, yeah.
So it seems to me one of the things that would make a big difference is if BFI really cared about how much garbage you put out. My understanding is they have 2 rates. One of them's a 1 can rate, and the other says you can have up to 5 cans out. And they're only a couple dollars difference. So, I mean, you can basically, I do the 1 can rate, and I'm not making up enough money to pay for you, although I do anyway. But I mean, it doesn't seem like they have any sense of how much their landfill's worth, or how much. Is there a way to reach them? I mean, because really, when I lived in Eugene, we had a half a can, had a rate, and then there was a 1 can rate, and then there was a slightly larger 1 can rate, and a 2 can rate. And it made sense to recycle. Again, they
Yeah.
deduct the recyclable.
Because if you could do 1 can and then recycle, it would become a pocketbook issue.
Right,
I see. But here, they don't really, well, you know, BFI got bought by Awin 3 years ago. And BFI used to have a motto, say, mine deep. They were into recycling. But Awin doesn't have any such. I mean, BFI had a whole curriculum for 1 through 12 educational curriculum. Awin said, forget that, we're not going to do that. You know, they're not interested in recycling. I don't know how to get them there, except for if there's enough demand by the community and by the people, you know. I was kind of toying with the idea, wouldn't it be cool to start your own trash business? Go ahead and pay the tipping fees up there at the landfill and have a recycling and trash business where you could do that. And so you could take business from BFI and do their trash and do their recycling, you know? And then they would maybe, you know, like, well, look at what, you know, you people, well, I shouldn't say it, it's going to be on TV, but, yeah.
You know, there are some of us in this room that do remember when you bought a Coke and you could get your nickel back for the Coke and those sorts of things. I don't know if you could speak to some of that, but I think one of the barriers is that as a consumer, we have the power to decide what we want to buy.
Yeah.
And, you know, why is the onus on the small guy when these companies, these Fortune 500 companies, really have that money and they have the ability to recycle us? And yet I think one of the barriers is that, you know, we're all sitting here trying to struggle to say, how do we get it done?
Yeah.
If we were to take that power back and not buy those products.
You know, it's kind of happening on a national level. It's just not happening here because the awareness is so low. Like I say, we don't have the media attention. You know, we don't have people focusing on it. And I don't know. I called the Independent and I said, you know, we've been trading them for recycling. How about a favor? We could use a little bit of press. Like when we started doing glass, we got that much press.
Right, we're supposed to be such a progressive community, you'd think it'd be.
I know. Maybe I'm ugly. I don't know. I don't know. You know, I went to talk down. I've gone down there. I haven't really tried with the Missoulian.
How long have you running for mayor?
In Missouri, yeah, really. That's what I had to do. But except for then, they'd find out stuff about me, and you know that would be.
Stage a little where we all go into a market.
Yeah.
One day across the state.
Yeah.
Okay, we all go into a Safeway, we buy our food, we pay for it, and on the other side of it, after we've gotten our change back, okay, then we take all our products, all the things that have to be recycled, and we brought our own containers, and we leave everything there.
Then they're responsible.
And they are responsible. It would send a message.
Yeah.
You're not with me. Are you with me?
Well, I'm not sure. Then who picks up the? I'm just thinking that almost makes the store itself the bad guy. When really we want to be able to affect our government and our garbage collection agency that has a monopoly in Missoula.
They're producing the package.
Right, they are.
No responsibility. See, they're leaving the responsibility on the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
But then they don't make it easy for the consumer to recycle. I mean, packaging is not done in a way that it's easy to recycle. It's easy. They say it's easier to make new bottles than it is to bring them back. See, so the industry is fighting the consumer and then putting the onus on the consumer to recycle.
Yeah, right. You know, one thing I didn't bring up, I don't mean to change the subject, I think it's along the same lines, is the electronics recycling is becoming a really big issue. And like 20 states right now are trying to pass legislation because they have mercury switches in them, they're made with lead, and a lot of the bigger companies now are trying to figure out how can we build our product so it is 99% recyclable. Like Volvo just came out and said, we're making a car that's going to be 95% recyclable. And Dell Computer is a big one. They're taking back the computers. They say, save the box, we'll take the computer back. And, you know, I mean, recycling a computer is not an easy thing, and it couldn't be too profitable, you know, to try to take all those metals out and all those components, and then they shred the computer for the plastic and everything, and then they have to put them through separators. And, you know, so it's a big, I mean, I think what you're saying, you know, I think it is moving that way, is what I'm saying. I think that the big companies are trying to, like the Coca-Cola just built a huge plant in Mexico City to make their bottles out of recycled plastic. And you know, they're not building it in, you know, some obvious place in the United States. Of course, Mexican labor's cheaper, but they are doing something, you know, and I think it comes from the demand of the people that demand it, you know, and we can't exactly expect it to happen now by dropping stuff at their doorstep yet. But I think it's moving in a positive direction if you look where it's come in 30 years. You know, I'm just kind of worried about our home front right here. We're way behind the curve on just recycling. We got a 15% rate here, you know, and I think that's all about awareness, and I'm not quite sure what to do, but that's why I want to do it in schools. You know, because if kids, you know, when you recycle, okay, this is what I wrote on my newsletter, if I may. You're going to love this, maybe. But I'll have to have my glasses. Means I'll have to find them. Recycling rates. Kids are susceptible to the dealers that push trash on them. I believe recycling is a gateway action to higher environmental consciousness. People that recycle touch the resource and they make a decision where to put it. Naturally, people that recycle become more aware of their environment. With help, we can promote the logic of recycling at the schools in our neighborhoods. It will be a good investment in our future. We will work with teachers, business people, and you, our customers, to find and promote recycling in Missoula schools. Your ideas are appreciated and welcome. So, you know, what I'm saying is my solution is let's get it in education. Let's get kids recycling, you know, and then we're increasing the awareness. We're getting them in the habit. How many of you think that once you start recycling, you probably don't stop? I kind of think not. Once people start, because they touch the thing, and now when I throw a thing away with its cellophane wrap, I still think about the resource. What's this resource? I still think about that every time I throw something away, and it's because I recycle. And it's made me more of an environmentalist, and it's like a gateway action.
And our point is, it's not our responsibility to cycle a product from a company that could easily do it more than the populace.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote my curriculum on global warming and everything with the scientists, artists of the action years, and I divided actions for the kids to, you know, like 4 types of action. Consumer action, political action, persuasion, like talking to others, or education, and personal action, you know, so that they could like kind of put a hook on, you know, what they're doing. This is a consumer action, this is a political action. But, you know, in the political world, things don't happen overnight. So I hope to help the situation by, you know, if we can get it going in schools, it's a good thing. Another idea to get funding for schools that I'd like to try to do, and I've talked to Mason over at Pacific and Max over at BFI, is get some of these roll-off containers, put them in the school parking lot, let them have a paper drive. When I was a kid, we had paper drives, and we used to fill a big truck with newspapers for fundraising. And if we fill one of those roll-off, you know, and so if the kids have one in their parking lot, they're going to go out in the neighborhood and they're going to collect recyclables, and they're going to be able to pay for a recycling program at their school. And if you could do that, like say maybe twice a year, they know when it's coming, you know, then maybe we could sort of have the schools act as like a conduit to help increase the awareness in the community as well.
Almost directly related to that is, have you looked into how much they pay BFI just for their normal garbage?
Oh.
And you know, start to statistically attach the thing in terms of the volume and weight or whatever of what's going into those bins that they have to pay for to go to the landfill versus what they could, you know, save out and
Yeah.
do a small fee to pick up.
I know.
That's actually an interesting question. Because we're a home-based business, I don't have any sense of, dumpsters have different sizes and different prices for the different sizes.
Correct.
Do you have a sense of how
A little bit.
how big the difference is? I mean,
Well,
would it
like,
be worth it?
we pick up, I was going to tell you about all like the businesses that don't recycle in Missoula, but believe me, most of them don't. But there is one printer that recycles. Of all the printing businesses in Missoula, can you imagine all that they create, all the paper? Gateway Printing recycles with us, though. However, to pick them up, we would need to go get them every day. We don't have a blue bin route every day, and it would cost them more. They pay about $300 a month to get picked up every single day. So they fill our dumpsters, or our 5 bins. Our truck only holds 8 bins, and we only charge Gateway $17. And so really, it's kind of the cost basis. If I said, oh, how about if we charge you guys $30? They'd be like, no, we'll just throw it out because we're throwing 80% of it out as it is.
Does BFI do that? I mean, I know they used to
Hey,
provide them.
well, BFI provides those green dumpsters for cardboards. In fact, Missoula is the only city that has those in Montana.
So they will do cardboard for you?
Is that
Do they charge for it?
I think they sometimes pay you. The Good Food Store used to be a big account of ours. They made a deal with Pacific. They're big now. And they said, well, if you take all our other stuff, we'll give you our cardboard. So they trade their cardboard, which is worth 2 cents a pound.
Is that because they can take it to Stone?
Who? Well, most of old corrugated cardboard goes out of state. Some of it goes to Stone, not all of it. A lot of it, 40% of the paper that gets recycled in the United States goes to China. China's deforested. They don't have any trees, So, it's something I didn't mention, but China has been driving all the commodity markets up, including oil, as you all know. But, so now China and India are these huge giants that need all these raw materials. That's why I say they're not just recyclables, they're commodities. And they have a high value that's going up all the time.
Yeah, it's really intriguing and incredible to think that all the natural resource that is available for sale to foreign countries that would readily pay for these materials, these recycled materials, if we made them available to them.
Somehow we got to get them back, or not use them in the first place, like Jeanette was saying, Can't we, but I think it is happening to a point, I just think Missoula and Montana are behind the curve, and so, one thing I'd like to say is that, the work that Chuck and Sue do to make the Sustainable Business Council happen is a huge positive for all the things that we want to see happen in our town, and I'd like to thank them.
Thank you, Tom, for a great presentation. I want to thank you all for being here.